Hi everybody, this is Richa Agarwal. I let me first introduce myself before I start this session on analytics consulting. I have close to 11 years of experience, and right now I'm associated with MERS, where I am managing global data analytics, where we are helping business solve problems related to analytics and business intelligence. Prior to that, I was with Fractal Analytics. I worked there for some time, and then I moved this side. Uh, so my journey started with after my MBA in finance, and I moved towards forecasting and analysis part of it, but primarily on the business performance, not on the analytics side. And with this analytics consulting session, you would also come to know that how many different fields are there, and possibly you're already a part of analytics, but you don't know that you're part of analytics. And that is something which I learned when I joined Great Lakes, considering that analytics is the field that I would want to move to. But then I realized, oh, I was somehow already part of it. And that made my transition pretty easy. When I understood that what I learned and how to apply it, it was pretty easy for me to transition into this field. Now, biggest question, why we all want to get into analytics. So we live in a data rich and data driven world. Data is revolutionizing business in a way we never conceived. So much of what we do today is being recorded and stored somewhere, be it how you see your order on the phone, how you drive your car, you have CCTV cameras, then simple thing of how you do your credit card transaction. Everything, the data is getting stored somewhere. Companies big and small, in traditional and non-traditional world, are consuming their data and trying to understand how consumer behaves. So coming to the back to the analytics industry, globally, it is projected that $97.3 billion would be the size of analytics industry by 2025, and it's projected to grow by 6.4% at an annual growth rate. Coming to India, and because our primary focus is to see how Indian market is. So Indian market is in 2019, it was at 3.03 billion dollar by 2019. Okay. So I know that you will be posting questions. So please pardon me if I'm looking at my phone or my screen to see the question that you have. So Akshat, I've got a query that is it necessary to pursue management to be part of analytics industry? I know that okay, you said that you are MCA. uh, I wouldn't say that it's necessary to pursue management to get into that. So, as I said, as we move into the presentation, you will come to know that what part of analytics would be suitable for you, for your profile, for your experience. Now, coming back to this presentation, average work experience in any analytics industry is 8 years. You see how young it is in that context. And 40% of them are less than 5 years experience bracket. So that means it's a field where freshers or when you are just stepping into mid management, you can try to get into. Now, where the jobs are, so more than 25% of the jobs are in Bangalore. Next is Delhi, which is 25%, and then comes Mumbai, which is somewhere around 18%. It is also because Bangalore always had the technical people. So it was very easy for analytics to take up there. And then Delhi, because a lot of consulting companies are there. So it is easy for them to take over analytics use cases pretty fast. Then comes Mumbai. Why? Because Mumbai was always a business hub. So there are a lot of things that happens on the business side, so taking analytics from the business angle becomes easy here in Mumbai. Now, whether when you look at the company size, you see that mid-sized companies are almost recruiting 33% of the analytics professional. Startups are recruiting 29%, and large size company, which is 10,000 plus employees, are recruiting 38% of their workforce into analytics. So we see that it's a field that everyone would want to get into. And why? uh, that's the biggest question, because what we have seen, that's the growth that we project from this kind of industry. Various profiles that you see on in the job market are data analyst, data scientist, data engineer, BI developers, consultant, solution architect, UX developer, project manager. Now you see that most of the job titles you see are actually mapped into three categories, which is analytics consulting, data engineering, and data science. And recently we've also seen the trend of design thinking and business intelligence. Why? Because design thinking now in companies, they have started creating solution, and now it is about how the customer would use it. So you see those apps coming up. You have Zomato app, you have Swiggy app. It gives you a user experience which make you to glue with that app. And that's where design thinking comes into picture, that what, how and what the user experience should your product or your solution should give. Okay, now with this with this overview, we'll go back to our core topic, which is analytics consulting. And why analytics consulting? Because it is something that stitch all of it together. Okay, I have got a couple of more questions. Okay, so these are transition related question. I would prefer to take it a bit later when you understand a bit on what is happening on the analytics consulting side. Um, so the topic is analytics consulting. Why? Because it stitch all of this together. Okay, why I say that? Because a consulting company, and a consulting is not just a consulting company, but even businesses, captives also involve consulting a lot, because they need to understand how they can utilize analytics full potential. Okay, and we'll come through this later in the topic, that how a consulting helps an organization move to that next level and realize the value or potential. Now, one thing is, now you know that you're interested in analytics. Now the question is, and I'm sure most of you have this question, that what kind of analytics job is right for you, right? You'll see that most of the job profile, you'll find data scientist as a word, which is broadly used, but it's vaguely fall under all three categories. Analytics consultant, they would want someone who know about coding, who know about R, who know about various techniques, statistical technique. Data engineering is a field where a person needs to create those data pipelines to enable a model to run. Data science is very specific to creating models, creating algorithm, using statistics to make those solutions. Analytics consulting, on the other hand, it's primarily around business. Okay, so when we say business, that means if you are an MBA and you have studied business, and you know how to do analysis on the data from, so what kind of roles come into there? Data analyst role, BI developer role, consultant role, project managers, product owners. All these go into analytics consulting. Not just analytics, these consultants, they need to work along with data engineering and data science, because then only they'll be able to create certain solutions. Okay, so we'll cover these profiles. We'll talk about this in detail later, but first we understand what analytics is, because that will also give you some perspective as to, is it really fit for me? Because sometimes people want to get into analytics, but that's not really they should be doing. So analytics can range from a simple exploration into how many sales of a particular product were made last year, to a complex algorithm predicting which customer to target for next year's marketing campaign. And there's a book which is called In Competing on Analytics, who was written by Thomas Davenport. It's a famous book, and the author Thomas Davenport, he is an American academic and an author specializing in analytics, business process innovation, and knowledge management. Now, according to him, analytics is the extensive use of data, statistical and quantitative analysis, exploratory, predictive models, and fact-based management to drive decision. Too complex, but in layman terms, it can be defined as the analysis of data to draw hidden insights to aid decision making. Now, it could be a complex model, or it could be as simple as business performance. And you really do not need to be an analyst to do analysis. Analytics has become an essential skill for running any kind of business successfully. For an example, a call center manager analyzes his team's performance for resource optimization. HR managers, they use employee data to predict attrition. Marketers use sales and marketing ROI data to decide the optimal allocation of the marketing budget. So in today's workplace, every manager and most contributors are leveraging analytics in some way. Now, there are two type of analytics, two type of data. One is quantitative data, another is qualitative data. Quantitative data is simple, which gives you specific variables. Qualitative data are data like image, videos, text. Right? They are non-numerical data. Now let's understand analytics with use case. So we've seen in the past that FMCG clients have been continuously challenged. Okay, you see that growth, Nestle, P&G, PepsiCo, all these are there in the presentation, and all are giving a negative growth. If you see even the organic revenue growth, we see a downward trend in that. Similarly, if you saw 2006 to 11, the revenue was 7.7%, which has gone down to 0.7%. Okay. Now, let's take an example of a sales report of a company, say Pepsi. This report will tell you how many units of Pepsi were sold, where they were sold, what price, and a lot of other things. Now, all of this information is coming from data. All you're doing is slicing and dicing the data in different ways, looking at it from different angles, along different dimensions. Now, there is very little statistics involved in descriptive analytics, and you really don't need to be a statistical whiz to be able to effectively deliver descriptive analytics. And that's exactly what you see on the slide. That's a descriptive analytics that you see. And this is something, again, we call as a business intelligence, to look at the performance, how it is performing. Now, while descriptive analytics is a very powerful tool in itself, but still giving the information about the past. Whereas a business owner, primary concern is to look at the future. Now, since we saw that FMCG company have been continuously challenged, now finding that growth is a challenge. Where to find that new growth? Now, similar to FMCG, if I run a hotel and I want to able to predict how many of my rooms will be occupied next week. Similarly, if I'm a pharma company, I want to know which of my drugs likely to succeed. Now, this is where predictive analytics come into picture. Albert Einstein said, if you want to know the future, look at the past. Now, how predictive analytics work? It works by identifying patterns in historical data and then using statistics to make inferences about the future. Now, at a very simplistic level, we try to fit the data into a certain pattern. And if we believe that the data is following a certain pattern, which we could see from the past, then we can predict what will happen in the future. And that is why a rare event like we had Brexit happening, we had election happening, or we had demonetization happen, it was not able to predict because that was a rare event and we didn't have any pattern of a similar nature in the past. Now, when we say that look at your past, I give you another example from the telecom industry this time. So customer attrition means customer who leave a particular telephone company services and moving from Vodafone to Geo. It is an important issue for telecom companies. Now they would love to predict which customer are likely to move out, likely to port. Now predictive model enable them to do that. Now, for example, if let's say a customer phone usage has gone down drastically in last 1 to 2 months, it could be an indicator that he is likely to move out. And this is just one factor taken into consideration. An analytics predictive model takes multiple such factors to predict, to have an effective indicator of someone who is likely to port. Now coming to our topic, why consulting? Why really we need consulting? Now analytics, as we've already covered, analytics offer heaps of promised benefit. From reduced churn to increasing sales to predicting growth and giving an actionable insight. But successfully deploying analytics is a challenge for an organization whose core business is not analytics. Someone who's creating drugs, who's creating like Novartis, pharma companies. These companies, their core business is to produce something, but not analytics. Now, for them, they need consultants. They need consulting, whether external consultant or internal consultants, to make them realize the value of the analytics. They'll be stuck. Where do I start? Which metric should be prioritized? How should my organization be structured for success? For this, analytics consulting helps them to take them from their current state to their future state. In very layman terms, to develop an analytics strategy, a plan that will take tools, people, algorithm, mathematics, everything together to derive business value. Most of the jobs are around consulting, if you'll see in analytics. There are three levers. One is project management, problem solving, and storyboarding. You need to be really good for, problem solvers, because business can throw any problem to you and say, can you solve it for me? Project management. Analytics projects, they do not have, they cannot follow the same project management style that a typical software development had, because there are no fixed deliverables and the outcomes need to change. A data scientist have to do multiple um, iterations to reach to an accuracy, to derive a trade-off between an accuracy and business relevance. So project management becomes a very strong field to explore in analytics. Storyboarding. What is storyboarding? Storyboarding is about the presentation of your data. How do you present? So you need to be a storyteller, and there is where BI comes into picture. BI developers, design thinking, UI developers, how to say, how you tell the story to the business so that it is easier to consume. Because for them, if I just throw the data in front of them, they may not be capable enough to consume it. But you need to have that mindset of telling the story, having that a flow of the story in your presentation to be able to make them consume your information. Now, a typical analytics consulting, when you want to create a value for any organization, you need to start with strategy development. Then we go towards capability development, then implementation, and then value realization. So when you as a consultant go to any analytics company and derive about strategy, what do you develop? Now, it might sound very obvious that analytics strategy must be rooted in the business processes. But what we tend to see that the analytics initiatives are not given that priority, because they don't, or the business doesn't understand. It's not their focal area. As I said, that it's not their domain, it's not their business. Therefore, it is very important for a consultant to understand what is the company trying to achieve in the next 1 to 3 years. What core processes of the value chain is the strategy aiming to change? And what key changing program are already taking place? A good analytic strategy highlights the critical decisions or trade-offs a company should make to get the best of the best output from the analytics or the technological change that they are foreseeing. Capability development. Now, once you have your roadmap ready, that what you will be doing to take the company from this state to the next state, now the biggest area is to develop that capability within. Building a robust analytical architecture will be the key to realize the business outcome which is set forth by your roadmap. Looking across the set of initiative and architect, now you see there is another profile which is coming into picture, which is a solution architect. A solution architect must assess the required changes for data, application, tools, and technical architecture and lay a corresponding transition plan. So I have got a couple of questions, so I would rather take it before we get new ones. Okay, so Debashish Das has asked, how hard would it be for a web designer to move into analytics for almost 3 years? How can, and then Ashish has asked, how can an individual from non-technical background, that is commerce, initiate his career in analytics? So, Debashish, now since UI has come big in this analytics world, for a web designer, it is not very difficult for them to move to analytics. You can get into, so as I said, you need to understand first which area you want to get into, right? For what kind of analytics job is right for you. So transitions always become easy when you keep a target which is as per your current skills. So now, right now you are having a web designer experience. Now it is very easy for you to transition into creating the user interface for analytic solution. There is no point thinking of getting into data science or or a consulting field when your core skills is web designing. And then even companies would take you as a fresher. So rather than going as a fresher, you try to transition into creating UI. Maybe take a course on design thinking and understand how you can stitch UI and user experience together and create those create wireframes. That would be the next field you should be doing. Another is how a non-technical background, that is commerce, finance, and commerce as a sector is the um, has the highest utilization of analytics, by the way. So transitioning into analytics should not be very difficult for commerce. Um, if we can understand, so there's this recent study that is happening on audit side. So if they are so they're trying to find anomalies in the balance sheet um, during audit, which can help in the audit process. So you try to understand these use cases in your field, that what all use cases are there in my audit or in my commerce field, which I can transition out into analytics pretty easy by applying that myself. Definitely you need to have the knowledge. So in your case, you should have the domain knowledge, which you already have. Now you need to also marry it with the technical knowledge. So you need to learn your various techniques that a finance field applies, and then you apply it yourself, put it in your resume, and it's easy for you to get a job, because people who have both experience are rare to find. Okay, so I have another question where they say, for technical managers, what is the scope? In which layer or chain they fit? For technical managers, I need more specification, Praveen Sahu. When you say technical manager, are you talking about the software IT managers, or what is this? Because in analytics also we have technical managers, which we call as project managers or solution architects. So can you be a bit more specific on what when you say technical manager, so that I can help you with that? Okay, so moving on to implementation. So once you have developed the capability, um, okay, now moving to implementation. So many initial implementation of big data and analytics fail because they aren't in sync with the company's day-to-day processes and decision making. Model designers need to understand the type of business judgments that manager make to align their action with broader company goals. Conversation with frontline manager will ensure that analytics and tool complement each other so that company can manage a trade-off effectively. Yeah, Praveen, I have got your response. So now, if so, in most of the cases, this implementation fail, this scaling up fail, because the analytics, the technical analytics expertise that we're looking at, and the decisions that we'll be taking from this is not in sync with the business. So business has a completely different goals to achieve, and technical team or modeling that is being done is on the least priority things. So it is obviously it is going to fail. Rather, the priorities should be in sync with what we are getting, the product or solution developed in the organization. Once you have this, then comes the realization of the value. The power of your analytics strategy is that it provides a common language allowing executives, IT professional, data scientists, and manager to discuss where the greatest returns will come from. And more important, to select 2 or 3 places to get started. So there was a question from Abhijit Chaudhary that how do you convince the management on ROI before suggesting scaling of analytics capability? Example, data lake creation, selection of cloud. Data lake creation is a very big thing, Abhijit. If a company doesn't have Azure, if they are not even looking at that, definitely data lake is a very big thing that you first put into place. You have, as I said, you have to look at the greater returns with smaller steps. You have to see one or two places to get started. You cannot just talk about ROI by giving an example of a data lake, because that's a huge investment for a company. But if you start slow, give them something on the BI side, then you create a small model to predict. So as per my experience, when we started this journey in my one of my organizations, we were taking decision of growth, 5%, 6% growth, by just looking at the assumptions that we had. And then we realized how many times are we failing in our growth projections. Then we incorporated forecasting models to forecast the growth for us. Very less investment, but high return, because after testing, we realized the forecasting model are more accurate than we were while we were just looking at assumptions and input from various regions. That's how you start giving ROI. Once the business see the value in your output, in your decision capability that your model is giving, then you can go towards bigger and bigger investment from the company. For a successful consulting, a consultant need to play with various levers, as I showed: project management, storyboarding, and problem solving. Problem solving is a bigger area. And for that, for fresher, guess estimates are something which help you sequence, see that you can properly sequencing the problem. You're putting it in right flow, trying to take each and every aspect of the problem. And if you need to understand, so problem solving is itself a bigger, a big field, which you can even learn from various sources, where there are multiple frameworks that can help you solve a problem, break down a problem. Now, once you have the problem statement defined, so you are working on 2 or 3 problems. Now use the analytics value chain to address it. So coming back to the same question where someone has asked, how do you suggest ROI? Think of the analytics process as a value chain. Each step of the chain require additional work, but yields additional value. Moving up the analytics value chain from descriptive to cognitive require a thoughtful approach to understanding, measuring, and analyzing the problem. Now, as you go up, even the difficulty, although value realization move up, but then even the maturity of implementation and complexity also increases. So, for anything, for any organization, it needs to start with the lowest level. Less difficult, easy to implement, less automation required, lesser value. So if you see descriptive, diagnostic, these are the low hanging fruits which anyone can take. Obviously doesn't have the predictive power in nature, but the moment you're doing a descriptive and diagnostic correctly, you can move to the more sophisticated area of prediction. So descriptive, you will understand what has happened. It is based on standard aggregate functions, which just require knowledge of maths. It doesn't require a lot of analytical knowledge, but simple sums, count, those kind of things come under descriptive analytics. There are other things as well, which summarizes like standard deviation calculation, then understanding the variance, then your lower bound, upper bound, your interquartile range, your various quartiles that you have. So that tells you what has happened in the business. Diagnostic, the moment you get into diagnostic, it will tell you why did it happen. It will do a kind of root cause of an event. Now it can be used to provide an understanding of a cross-functional data to find the relation. So if you see that your sales has dropped, you can marry it with multiple other data and see why it has dropped. What is the relation between this variable with the other variable to do the diagnosis. And the moment you get into diagnostic, why did it happen? You start getting the insights. This is also called discovery analytics. The moment you discover the root cause, predictive analytics becomes very easy. So you remember our attrition problem where we were looking at a telecom company and the customers are trying to port. Now, if you understand that with my past historical data, this customer or maybe a bunch of customers have not been, have been continuously dropping the volumes on our phone, on our network, that means it is likely to attrite. Similarly, you can find the relationship with this to their other information of their monthly payout, or the services, value added services, whether they have reduced any value added services. Then we move to predictive. It tells you what might happen in the future. So the organization can take corrective action. Forecasting customer behavior, understanding purchasing pattern to identify the trend in activities. These will help to give you what will happen in the future. Then comes the prescriptive, which tells you how to make it happen. So prescriptive analytics attempt to quantify the effect of future decisions, to have to advise on possible outcome before that happens. So you can think of it from a simulation perspective, right? Simulation, optimization. So you can say, okay, so from your lifestyle, you have your historical spends, that where you spend every month, and this is the saving that you do. Now if I need to affect my future savings that I would want, that's my target to have, how to make it happen. So I simulate it. I simulate that if I spend this much on this, I spend this much on this, and if I don't go this, I cut down on this. So these are various variables you can play. I can take up additional job, a part-time job. These are multiple variables you can do to achieve the target. And that's the simulation that you need. So these kind of analytics is called a prescriptive analytics. Obviously, I've explained it in a very simple term, but that's how you understand what analytics can help you in your day-to-day life as well. Cognitive analytics. Now, most of the companies not really reached into cognitive analytics, but you can understand from the chatbots. It tries to mimic brain by drawing inferences from the existing data and patterns, and understand the context, draw conclusion based on existing knowledge. So how these chatbots work? They You keep on feeding them, they keep on learning. You see your phone Siri or Google Assistant. What do? They read your pattern. Even if you start writing in a language which is not Hindi or English, if you're writing in English, then next time it will also suggest the same word, because it has learned. It has learned that what in search, so this scenario, what it will give you. Try to do this. You write okay in your chatbot on WhatsApp. You'll see that a thumbs up will come. Similarly, there'll be other things as well which you'll be using frequently. It will start giving you those inferences and suggestion automatically. That's the cognitive intelligence. Now, this is a value chain, and there are certain profiles at each level. So when we talk about data, at the data side, we have data engineers. What do data engineers do? They create all the data transformation. They understand any data anomalies. So anyone who is working in IT side at an engineering, with an engineering degree into software side, but is working with the data, it is very easy for them to become data engineers. Actually, they are already data engineers. Or they can also try to become data analyst. Okay, we are not talking about business analysts, but data analysts, right? So with data analysts, they would try to see how the data is doing, what are the anomalies. Yes. So, Hari Nair, you're asking, would cognitive analytics fall in the domain of AI more than analytics? So you can understand that AI is so analytics is a broader term. Your machine learning, AI, everything comes under that. It's a broader term. Anything that has to do with data, any analysis that you do is analytics. Yes, the moment you get into cognitive field, you're getting into AI. That's artificial intelligence. Yes, that's absolutely right. But everything is analytics. Okay, so coming back to this, so data engineers can be already who's an engineer who's working with the data, but on the engineering side can very well get into data engineering. And your job should be to look at all the data engineering job and see what skills are needed, and if there is any gap, you need to fill that gap. Right now, data engineers are expected to know about cloud infrastructure. So you may want to learn that. They need to know um, how to connect the real-time data, Kafka systems. So those kind of things a data engineer needs to know. So you go and check what all skills are required for a data engineer. Then comes BI, business intelligence, where you have descriptive, diagnostic, and some part of predictive as well. Mostly people who are MBAs or somehow related to business in domains, they can very well fit into analyst or be business analytics professional. Okay, when I say business analytics, it is mostly around business analysts, BI developers. Obviously, it depends on the experience level that you carry. BI developers would be pretty entry level jobs where you have done your MBA, and 1 year into the business, then you can very well get into a business analyst or BI developer role. Consultants, um, it's kind of more than 3 years, 5 years. You can get into consulting. You can become consultant. Again, a very business specific role. Project managers, uh, it ranges from project manager, program manager. It ranges from 5 years to anything to 10 to 15 years. Again, if you have been a technical manager, IT manager, you have to understand the nitty gritty of an analytics solution. So Praveen Sahu, it's generally an analytics project. So a project manager of an analytics solution, they need to know agile as a methodology and crisp DM. Why? Because they are very iterative in nature. Any analytics project, it doesn't have fixed deliverables all the time, but it requires project management because someone needs to talk to stakeholders and tell them that, okay, this is what we agreed upon and this is what we will change, because even business keep on changing their deliverable. So someone needs to have a complete write up or documentation ready to as to tell them that, see, this is what we agreed upon. And also at the same time, sometimes you don't really need, you are not able to solve a problem, and you need to understand where to say stop. Again, a project manager come into picture to tell them, okay, see, this is what the reality is. We are able to achieve only 60% accuracy, and now with the current data that we have, we will not be able to go beyond that. Then the relevance of the business will lost. Now, consultant, on the other hand, should be very good at problem solving. They need to understand how to break down a problem. So you can learn about MECE trees, hypothesis trees, issue trees. Then a consultant also need to have some knowledge of storyboarding. They need to have, so analytic consulting, as I started in the beginning, I said that it stitches all this together. Why? Because analytics consultant, a consultant needs to know bit of everything. A client would also talk technical language with them. They can talk about neural network. They can even talk about, you don't know with the client that who's sitting, a data scientist sitting in front of you, and you have to be at the, obviously you can take a data scientist along, but a consultant without any knowledge will not be taken seriously by the client. The client pays to a consulting company. Similarly, if you are an internal consultant for a business, you've been given salary because you're expected to know certain things, and these certain things are, you need to know how to solve a problem, how to break down a problem, how to prioritize which problem to solve first, how you create a wireframe, how a typical solution should look like, what should be the output, the final deliverable, what all techniques possibly can solve the problem. So a consultant has a lot of learning to do, not that detailed that a data scientist requires. And now coming to data scientist, anybody who is already into computer science, stats, coding, heavy coding, algorithm, they can get into a data scientist field very easily. Um, Obviously with some, so right now if you are coding on Python but you are not creating machine learning models, you can learn machine learning techniques and you can transition yourself into a data scientist role. Now it is easy said than done, obviously, because this field require experience. They would want, when you apply, they will want, okay, well, how much experience do you carry? But now the thing is, you need to first understand that what fits you more. So what happens generally, I've seen with all my mentees, that they will come with a very different background and then they will say, I want to transition. then it's not impossible, but it becomes all the more difficult, and it needs a lot of perseverance for you to get into the right role. The first and foremost thing is to understand what role fits you best. A consultant, an MBAs, business fit best in the consultant role. They fit best in the analyst role if you are still entering. Data scientists, people who have been into coding, being into solution development from the coding perspective, they are best to get into data scientist position. Data engineers who are already into a lot of solutioning, especially on the data pipeline, data line, how to solution become a solution architects. Those are fitting into data engineering jobs. Now let's take a few questions. I will show these slides for you to know there are certain players in the market which are specific to analytics. So on the left hand side, you see the Gartner quadrant. You have leaders. These are the most of them are the consulting companies: Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, EY, PwC. These are all consulting companies, and you see these are the leaders as well. So it makes all the more important to understand analytics consulting. How do you consult in a business? And consulting companies hire everyone. They hire data scientists, they hire BI developer, they hire data engineers, and they hire very senior people. They also hire domain experts. Okay, so I get these queries that someone who's worked in marketing for quite some time but has no analytics experience, how do I get into these things? So your best role, best target company should be consulting companies, because they are looking for people who are domain experts, because they want people to think from the business side, someone who they can place in front of the business and who can talk the same language. So it is very easy to get into consulting. With some, obviously, you need to upskill yourself by understanding analytics, understanding the use cases around your domain, understanding how to apply all of this together, and then you can transition very quickly. You have other companies as well who is slowly, steadily moving. These are challengers: Cognizant, Atos, Infosys. These are companies. We are talking about global companies. Right hand side, you can see companies of which are in India, like Mu Sigma, SmartQ, Manthan, Fractal, WNS. Again, most of them are consulting companies, right? You see, downside, I have mentioned few deals. So you see how business is also continuously trying to take over, do them M&As, acquire companies which are into analytics, or investing some money in such companies. Like Fractal had $100 million deal with Khazana. This is an old data. Recently, they have got $500 million from Apex. So many companies, many PE ventures are investing their money in these analytics companies. So you see a good growth in startups which are not really startups but have already gone to a 10 years, have crossed 10 years in line. Okay, so Vijay Swami, he says that what are the things fresher must have to get into analytics? Okay, a fresher, first, obviously knowledge. You need to, even a fresher needs to understand the field first. This is business intelligence. Should I get into business intelligence, engineering, or science? If it is about any of this, you have to gain that knowledge, and then you have to somehow showcase that knowledge on your resume. And the best thing you can do is research on job portals, that what kind of skills these companies are looking at. Once you identify that this is my kind of job, next things become very easy, because then you know which skills I need to gain. Okay, Karesh Pari, what exactly is data pipelining? Okay, data pipelining is, so in every organization, you have data coming from multiple sources. It could be external source, it could be internal source. And then for when you learn these modeling from any institute like Great Learning, they will give you that data, right? They will give you that data and then you put it into your model. But a data pipeline, when you do it in an organization, you need to create those pipelines mean that suppose you have 100 tables. Okay, you have 100 tables and you need to get 50 fields, 100 tables with 100 fields, so you get almost 10,000, right? So now you want only 50 fields from these 100 tables. Now you need to have those pipelines ready. Similarly, this is from your internal source. Similarly, if you are some data is coming from external source, you have to have that also stitched into your model to get your final data that will go into the model. So that data pipeline creation is done by data engineering team. Okay, to translate the data into the usable data, create those queries. So SQL as a language becomes very important for any data engineer or anybody who's getting into analytics. You can really not, even if it is BI, you need to know SQL, because how will you extract the data? In companies, data is not downloaded, it is not on Excel files. You have to download it yourself using SQL queries. Ramalingam is asking that will COVID-19 affect data science recruitment? Well, we see a slowdown, a big slowdown. There are a lot of companies who's really suffering because of this pandemic. But it's a global process. It is global phenomena that everyone is seeing. There's a slowdown that has happened. So I see that there's an impact, but it doesn't mean that suddenly the jobs will not go. Once the things are smoothing out, still then jobs again will come back. Again, social. Okay, so Karthik Aram, is data scientist related to business development? No, no, not at all. In fact, you reminded me of one more thing. There is another area. So there are people who are into sales. Okay, now for people who are into sales, how do they get into analytics? Now, a salesperson, imagine a salesperson wanting to become a data scientist. No one will really recruit him. As a recruiter myself, I don't know, I wouldn't be very comfortable. But I would be very comfortable if he knows about various tools, various solutions, various use cases, and understand the business. I'll be very comfortable putting him in front of the client to do business, to bring business for me. So doing sales is something a salesperson is already into sales, doing sales for an analytics company, he can definitely go for. But everything, whatever you want to do, you need to have the knowledge. You either search on the net if it's not too technical. So do your research, do your bring your jargons, um, understand what you're talking, understand what is a need for your kind of role, and then you try to apply. Now, Srinivasam Maduru, I'm working in procurement sourcing. How I have to move to this analytics side? How much experience do you have in sourcing? If it is pretty high, then why don't you try for companies like Unilever in their supply chain side, and get into supply chain analytics. You learn analytics techniques, and try supply chain analytics as one of your area, because procurement is something which procurement sourcing is something that they would really want someone who knows the domain. Arjun Murli. So he was asking that, can you talk a bit about how design thinking and data science is affecting automotive industry in India? Data science, I don't see that there is any industry which is not affected by data science. Automotive industry, the multiple things you can do. So a simple one, I would say a simple one would be, if they have multiple models, which model they need to bring as their facelift, and what all features are needed to be additionally brought onto that to that vehicle, so that it can generate more sales. That's one of the use case. Design thinking. Um have you seen that electric vehicle which had monitor? And in fact, this latest car from Hyundai, I don't, or rather not Hyundai, but there's another one. Um, Even Morris MG, that car had a huge panel. Now, that panel, that interface is created by someone, right? Now, there are so many things which it's not related to just consumers. There are multiple things that companies do for their vendors, for their suppliers, for their channel partners, right? So automotive industry is not just the manufacturer, but it also the channel partners. So they generate a lot of tools for their channel partner. Why a channel partner should take a Hyundai car but not a Maruti Suzuki? So there are a lot of channel partners, and even there's certain channel partner which are getting to multiple brands. Why should I give? Why should I sell your car more than other cars? So there are a lot of schemes that are made for suppliers, for their channel partners. Similarly, it happens for FMCG. Why, if you go to these supermarkets, why a product should be placed at a certain place? Even that has analytics, right? Where the probability of selling is more, which position on the shelf, analytics will sell, a product will sell more, right? Okay. So Divya Rupa Patnaik, what tools should be known for analytics? So multiple tools. If you are planning to get into data scientist, then Python and Spark are the one you should be definitely knowing. If you want to be into consultant side, I would prefer that you should be very good in Excel, PPT, presentation, and you should know R a bit, and Tableau or any of the BI tool. So BI tools are Tableau, Power BI, MicroStrategy. You can very easily learn Power BI and Tableau. They have their basic version, which is easily downloadable, and you can go ahead and learn it. So Tableau, for anybody who want to get into consultants or BI developers or analysts, they need to have Tableau or Power BI knowledge, as well as SQL. SQL is important for everybody, whichever field you want to get into. For data engineers, they should either know the Google Cloud or Azure Cloud or AWS. So cloud, there are three cloud providers right now which are mostly used. One is Azure, which is given by Microsoft. Then there is AWS, which is given by Amazon Web Services. Then there third one, which is GCP, which is given by Google. So any one of them is, if you're certified in any of them, it's good to go. Karesh, you are asking what are the best strategies for someone without experience in analytics to get real world projects and experience before getting into analytics job. So best strategy, if you are working in an organization, the best thing is to try in the same organization. I did it myself. If you are somehow working with the data, if you are already having certain data, try to see what all use cases you can derive from that data. Okay, because when you are in front of any organization which is into analytics, they will, sometimes they will tell you that this is my problem, you solve for it. Sometimes they won't even tell you, they will only give you the data and say, can you tell me what can be solved with this data, what can we do with this data. Okay, now you should do it before you land into such a position. So you see the data in your current organization and try to see what all things can be done, what all insights are coming from that data, how I can create a model, right, in your data. If you are getting into data scientist role, if that is your preferred role, then you should also try to create models. Okay, because in interview they will ask you, okay, what you have created. Now if you have already created in your previous organization, doesn't matter if it was part of your job or not part of your job, but if you are, it is very easy for you to explain it. But if you don't create it, you won't be able to explain it that well, because the moment you start creating these models, you'll understand there are a lot of issues that come when you create such model. Even data transformation is one of the major issue. Then getting the best accuracy is a major issue. And testing the data is one of the very big issue the data scientists feel. Mhm. Okay, I think I have covered most of the questions. If anybody has any more question, just let me know. Okay then, thank you and all the best. I hope this session was helpful, and you can get easily transition into analytics. Thank you.